Something is shifting. What we were told was permanent is being questioned in real time. This is not simply chaos, it's an inflection point, or perhaps more precisely, a rupture. A rupture not chosen, but triggered. The point, however, is not the trigger. The point is our response. A moment when the future can bend toward what we choose to rethink and rebuild. But we cannot reimagine society without first reimagining ourselves. Remember this: every system reflects the beliefs of the society that created it. Welcome to Inflection Point Podcast, where Reimagine We begins with Reimagine Me. So in our reflective conversations, we think together in real time, we explore meaning, experience, and different ideas with curiosity without attempts to persuade or perform. So here, we don't just talk about the world, we examine the ways in which we're being formed by the world and how together we can reimagine it. So I'm your host, Anita Russell, and this is Reimagine We, and here's a quick hello from Gail Hunter.
Hi, I'm Gail Hunter, and welcome to our program.
Excellent, excellent. So let's get started on today's topic. We're doing a reflective conversation on an organization called MANNA Worldwide. And I got introduced to this organization because someone from their organization reached out to me and said, "Hey, we've seen your podcast. We would love to be featured on your podcast." So as a follow-up to this particular episode where we're really focusing on the organization, then in the next episode, we'll have that same individual come and give us that more personalized story, if you will, in connection to the organization. So MANNA Worldwide describes themselves as a Christian organization on a mission to rescue children from the grip of poverty. And so you hear stuff like that and you say, oh, that really, really sounds good. But we like to kind of examine things a little bit deeper, just to kind of get a sense, particularly when I think about the word empowerment. And interestingly enough, when I had the session with the gentleman that had reached out to us originally, we actually had an in-depth conversation about empowerment and different ways that you can sort of view and define empowerment and all of that. That's number one. And number two, I actually had a very in-depth conversation. It was in relation to the whole Reimagine We platform, the idea of empowerment. And out of that conversation, I came to realize that you could look at empowerment from two perspectives. One perspective is I am the supplier of empowerment. So when I come into a situation and I'm working with some people in a community or something like that, I am the one who is doing the empowering, right? But the flip side of that is that I am a catalyst for empowerment, for self-empowerment. And so when you kind of look at, it's a very thin line, I would say, between the two definitions. But when you really, really sit down and look at it and think about it, the outcomes can actually be somewhat different. So we're going to take a look at this organization within that context. And so their mission is stated as rescuing children from the grip of poverty. The founding intent is to address global poverty through faith-based service and expanding into multiple countries and program areas, and also doing mission trips. And so as we move into this conversation, one of the things that I want that, Gail and I will reflect on in this conversation is how can we give children hope today and a brighter future tomorrow? So when I think about MANNA Worldwide and their story, and I begin to kind of dig into their story, that's a really valid question. And that is kind of the foundation of the work that they do. And so they begin with this conviction that vulnerable children deserve more than just to survive. And I agree with that. I'm sure Gail agrees with that 100%. Yes, we're all human. We all should be able to be in a position where we can do more than just survive. Gail, you wanted to make a comment?
No, it's just as our basic birthrights that we have a right to survive, and that we all desire that, and we all are created for that. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is a statement that I got off of their website. At MANNA Worldwide, we believe no child should have to face hunger or poverty alone. So they actually got established in the year 2001. I'm sorry. So I wanted to call that out. So for almost 30 years, we have worked with local leaders and communities to create programs that meet the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of children. And every project starts with one question: how can we give these children hope today and a better future tomorrow? So in terms of I'm just kind of giving that background information before we kind of dive more into the conversation itself. Their core mission is rescuing children from the grip of poverty with a holistic faith-based model focused on nutrition, medical care, education, clean water, orphan and family care, camps and retreats, leadership, job skills, and gospel-centered service. So they work directly with partners across 47 countries to rescue children, as I mentioned before, from the grip of physical and spiritual poverty. And so they have a whole entire list of these things that they do, some of which I've already mentioned: the nutrition part, the medical clinics, education in schools, clean water projects and wells, leadership development, camps and retreats, and orphan care and family, providing homes for children who are orphans. And then they also have the mission trips, which are rooted in local communities. MANNA develops programs around their specific needs, giving mission trip participants the unique opportunity to partner with people who live in and love these communities to bring flourishing and hope to the children. Experiencing a purpose-driven travel with MANNA Worldwide, where faith, service, and global outreach literally come together. So when you hear that, it sounds like really, really amazing. And when I was reading all of the stuff that they do, it was very good, right? And then I started looking at it from that more deeper concept of empowerment. And my hope is to, when the gentleman from the organization comes on, that we can continue the conversation, because we had a very lengthy conversation about this idea of empowerment and looking at empowerment through multiple lenses, right? At least two lenses that I would say. So at this point, I'm going to pass the baton over to Gail, and we're going to have this reflective moment centered around this question: does MANNA Worldwide see itself as a catalyst for self-improvement or a source, I'm sorry, for self-empowerment, or a source of empowerment? So depending on which side of the coin you're on, you can end up interacting with the group of people that you're trying to help in a very different kind of way. So I'm going to turn it over to Gail now, and she's going to give us a little bit more background information on the framework that they use in the work that they do.
Yeah, so I think the question is, are we rescuing people, or are we awakening the power that already lives within them? Because these two things can look very similar from the outside, but they can feel completely different to the person receiving them. And they produce very different results in the long run. And so the question, rescue versus empowerment, is one of the most important conversations we can have in the world of humanitarian and community work today, I think. The most profound act of service is not to give someone what they need. It is really to remind them that they already have within them the power to create it. And that is not charity. That is not mission. That is what we've been talking about, is reimagine we. And it changes everything. So we want to reconnect with our authentic soul blueprint and be able to really offer that same thing to those that, as a nonprofit, would be helping other people. So Bruce O'Neill and his wife Pamela were missionaries in the Philippines before they founded MANNA. And I think as Anita said, around 2001, they launched this new ministry focused on global child poverty. It was formally established and has since expanded globally, as was mentioned before. They're strongly rooted in evangelical Christian mission work and integrates humanitarian aid, such as food and education, healthcare, spiritual development, gospel-centered approach. Bruce O'Neill founded Worldwide out of a deep missionary calling, and he really did want to serve children that were experiencing poverty and hopelessness. He currently, I think, has the title of President Emeritus with leadership transition to the next generation, which would be Keith O'Neill as CEO. So the typical archetype is that missionary founder that's driven by compassion and calling. But like many driven or mission-driven organizations, the question really becomes, how does a rescue model evolve into one that centers community power and long-term transformation, right? Because that's crucial. Because the source of empowerment, power originates outside the community. If the source of empowerment is not within the community, organization is the giver, community is the receiver. And the risk is that we probably all know of is dependency, and that term called saviorism. But the catalyst for self-improvement, self-empowerment is recognizing that power already exists within the community, that the organization has to equal the facilitator and the amplifier, and the community must be the agent and co-creator, and the outcome has to be dignity, sustainability, and transformation. MANNA also emphasizes local partners, churches, community leaders, and place-based projects across many countries. Their trip page says programs are rooted in local communities and shaped around specific local needs, giving participants the unique opportunity to partner with people who live in and love these communities. Are they promoting and educating for empowerment? Their worldwide stated mission is to rescue children from poverty. And if you notice the word rescue, it's right there in their mission statement, and it matters. In the Reimagine We framework, rescue implies that power flows from the outside in, that someone without power is being saved by someone who has power, right? That's the traditional missionary model. And yet, when you do look beneath the language of what MANNA actually does on the ground, something more nuanced begins to emerge. For almost 30 years, MANNA has worked with local leaders and communities to create programs that meet the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of children. The phrase "with local leaders" is significant. It suggests something beyond pure top-down rescue. Each initiative is carefully designed in partnership with local leaders who understand their community's specific needs. Is MANNA designing with communities or for them? I think there's a profound difference, and the answer, based on the research, appears to be that it's both, depending on which program you actually are examining, that they actually are operating out of both places. That language that people who live in and love these communities is deeply resonant with the Reimagine We values. It also acknowledges that the community itself holds wisdom, love, and investment that no outside organization can replicate or replace. The key Reimagine We question to explore here is, who holds the power in the room when decisions are made? Are local leaders truly co-creators of the vision, or are they consulted after the framework has already been set up by outside donors and mission teams? I wonder what would change if we retired the word rescue and replaced it with the word remember, remembering the power, dignity, and capacity that already exists within every community. Any thoughts, Anita?
Yeah. That is such a wonderful summary. And so I'm not this, I want to be clear that I'm not doing this work because I'm trying to look at organizations and say, well, you're not doing this or you're not doing that. my whole entire reason for doing this work is this idea of me, myself, serving as a catalyst for empowerment. And so, in having these types of conversations and being able to take a look at what is happening, and you mentioned in your summary this idea of saviorism, and that is definitely something that I would strongly caution any organization, if that's kind of how they're looking
Right.
at it through that type of lens, and this idea that, I mean, I'm a believer. Like, I believe in Jesus Christ as my savior, but at the same time, I know that Jesus Christ is not going to come down and sit next to me and prepare a meal for me, or to do this for me, or to do that for me. So it's about walking in a different type of relationship, where what I'm getting in that relationship is the thing that is empowering me
Mhm.
to do the things that I need to do in my life, and dealing with some of the circumstances and things that kind of got me to where I am. So it's a very thin line, I think. And as I mentioned earlier, when I was in a meeting with my Ujima Collective sisters, and one of them actually challenged me on the word empowerment, right? And but when I say challenge me, I mean in a very, very good way, because I know exactly what I mean when I use the word empowerment. That's why I connect the word catalyst with empowerment, right? But what she pointed out to me, that sometimes the person that is in that position of serving someone else or helping someone else thinks of themselves as being the force, if you will, for empowerment. That because I'm doing something for you, specifically, I'm giving you food, or I'm cleaning up your neighborhood, I'm doing something things. So somehow me doing that work is a thing that empowers another individual. And so it was a very in-depth conversation. And what it made me do was go home and really sit down and think about reimagine we, and really think about, when I use the word empowerment, what do I mean? And I mean exactly some of the things that Gail had said. It's about recognizing what people already have and kind of meeting them in the space of where they are, and having those types of conversations, so that I'm not just coming in with a solution. I'm sitting down with you to make sure that whatever that problem is, that I'm understanding that problem through your lens, through your experience, and through your perspective. And then I can make choices
Mhm.
or recommendations, maybe, on how we could work together to make sure that you get what you need. So the empowerment doesn't originate with me. I become a catalyst for that empowerment to become visible in the individual or the community or what have you. So again, it can be, I feel like sometimes people use that word very loosely. And I'm taking this opportunity and these conversations to really, really talk about, what is that actually? And do I want to be the source of empowerment, or do I want to be the catalyst for empowerment?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the most profound act of service is not to give someone what they need. It's really to remind them that they already have within them the power to create it. That's not charity, that's not mission. That's really giving them that ability to know and recognize what lives within them, and then enhancing that and providing them with tools and education to learn more about that and what they can then do with it. And that's what you're describing as being the catalyst for. But
And you
recognizing that they have that all within them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned something very powerful as well, is the notion of having someone become dependent
Right, right,
upon you, because that's not empowerment either. Like,
right.
I'm here to be supportive, but my objective is for not for you to become dependent upon me. It's more like we're working together in concert with one another. We're working together in partnership with one another to make sure that the goals that you have are the goals that get achieved,
Mm.
right? So yeah, it can get really, really tricky
Yeah. Well,
depending on how you as the
yeah,
catalyst, do you see yourself as that catalyst, or do you see yourself as I'm coming in and with the solution
that's
and
true.
telling you what to do and how to do it?
Mhm. And even look at your own lives if you want, if you're somebody that tends to want to give and or working in mission work in some way or volunteer a nonprofit. You really have to be closely examining and ask yourself these questions that, where is this coming from your work that and what you really believe you want to do for them, or are you, and that which is rescuing, right? And giving to them, or are you really wanting to help them learn what they already have and what they can do with it and how to use that and how to grow from that, what is already within them.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it
That's
also
empowerment.
it also connects to coaching, if you will. One of
Mhm.
the very, very first things that I learned about being a coach is that it is not about you telling somebody what they should, could, or would do. It's literally about asking them questions for them to be able to discover what lies within themselves. When I think about my book, Cultivating Change from the Inside Out, it's all about having those conversations to understand what lies within you. Because if you don't have a strong understanding of what lies within you, and I'm trying to coach you on something and I don't know what that is unless you share with me. So the very, very first thing, it's like a mandate. You ask questions. You start by asking questions and then you respond accordingly to the way that they are going. So it's not a prescribed pathway that I take people on in a coaching process. And one of the things that is always an aha moment for me when I'm coaching someone is when they say, "Oh, I never thought about it like that." So if I can ask a question and it prompts that type of response, because now they're moving into a different territory, if you will, but that territory lies within themselves.
Yeah, therapy is not that different, right? It's,
Yeah,
I've always believed that we have the answers within us. It's how being with somebody that can help you actually listen to you within yourself and to access those answers and then to learn how to act on that in a different way to create
absolutely.
change. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
again, I mentioned, my faith because my faith is such a big part of how I live. But I also know that my walk with God is not about me just sitting back and waiting for him to give me stuff or waiting for him to show me the right path or show me this direction or show me that. Because if I'm doing that, it means that I'm also not acknowledging the gifts and the talents that he
Mhm.
put inside of me, right? And when I think about that, when I think about my own journey has been a very self-empowering journey across my lifetime. And as I, do this reimagine we work and really understanding what were the things that happened that became those moments, if you will, where my worldview shifted. So we've had conversations about that, where your worldview has shifted. And when my worldview shifts, it means you have to do some recalibration. So I've had to do that multiple times across the course of my life where I had to be the one to figure it out and recalibrate. But then when I needed help, I
Mhm.
knew who to go to. So, for example, Gail, I've come to you
Mhm.
in those instances in my own journey where I just wasn't sure.
Mhm.
And so being able to talk with somebody about this is, I'm not sure. But you did exactly the same thing that I did. It's about asking the right
Right.
questions.
Nice. Mhm. Yeah.
That's what so much of it is about. And so when I think about, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper into MANNA Worldwide and really take a look at what are the parallels between their organization and the Reimagine We that we're putting forth here. And there really are some good alignments that are there. So when we get to the second half of the show, we'll have the opportunity to kind of talk about those types of things. So again, I've mentioned multiple times about being a catalyst for self empowerment, to be that catalyst for someone else to kind of be in that space of self empowerment. And some of the things, just to sum up some of the things that Gail had mentioned, is that power already exists within the individual, but also within the community,
Right.
right? Or that the organization can serve as a facilitator, or you use the word amplifier. So I'm here to facilitate and help to amplify some of the things that are already there. Because if I can help you to recognize some of the things that are already there, then we start to build on that, right? And being that community agent. And one of the tools that I've used in the past has been around inquiry, appreciative inquiry. So I talked about this whole idea of asking the right questions and all that sort of thing. But I had an experience once when I was in Rwanda where I had to apply the appreciative inquiry approach to get at some information. It was when Mavis and I were in Rwanda together, and I had walked Deborah is our friend that was leading up this NGO, and walked her through a conversation. But in the conversation, I just ask a lot of questions. And when you do appreciative inquiry, there's like a certain direction, if you will, that you're going in. But in the process of you going in that direction, you're just asking questions and helping to pull out from within themselves some of the things that are there that they may have missed, or things of that nature. And so for me to be able to do that was such a wonderful experience for me, to be able to engage in that type of dialogue and get stuff out that was worth getting out, because it kind of helped put the work that we were there to do in a different context. So it took it out of any context that I may have had and put it completely in the context of Deborah and the work that she does. So I'm pretty sure we need to take a break now. I think I just saw the message come up. So we'll take a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll continue the conversation and just dig a little bit deeper into the whole MANNA Worldwide and how I see that in alignment with our Reimagine We.
Hey everybody, oh my goodness, we got talk radio for all of it.
Really, thank you for blazing the trail for women in talk radio and just being such an inspiration to me and so many other people. What you're doing is so awesome. And, without people like you there to really step out of the box and go for it, I don't know if someone like me would have ever ended up here, but I'm so happy to be here. And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. You're one of my major inspirations.
Luvology is where your body remembers what your soul never forgot. I work with men and women who are often at the edge of midlife, who are done.
Well, welcome back to an Inflection Point podcast as we continue our discussion of the MANNA Worldwide organization founded in 2021 by Bruce O'Neill and his family, with a conviction that vulnerable children deserve more than just survival. So we're going to flip the conversation a little bit and take a look at some of the parallels that I do see with their organization and how it aligns with Reimagine We. So we're going to take this portion of the conversation and split it in half. So I'll take the first two, and then I'll pass the baton to Gail, just so you can kind of get a sense of the flow of the conversation. So in the Reimagine We framework, empowerment is about awakening power that already exists. So we've said that multiple times, and I will continue to say it just to be sure that everybody is understanding where we are coming from. So the question is, how does that idea resonate with how MANNA Worldwide approaches its work on the ground? So we're going to go through some of the principles that are in the Reimagine We framework, beginning with this idea of self-mastery and personal empowerment. So in the research that I've done, it seems that there's really is good alignment with the work that they do, the approach that they take, and all of that, that does kind of reflect that self-mastery and that personal alignment. And so they center their work around children's dignity and hope and education and health and their future capacity. So when I hear words like that, it does ring in my ear as empowerment, right? That you're actually looking at those things that are there and improving upon or multiplying that which you already see. So this idea kind of connects really well with the Reimagine We concern for awakening human potential, because Gail and I both believe the potential is there. And as a catalyst, part of our role is to help that potential become visible and to become active, right? And so, especially through the education, the care, and they do mention leadership development as well. So I see that within that whole light of being in that space of self-mastery and personal empowerment. I can see why that alignment, when we did our research, that alignment came back as very strong, right? Another area that we focus on is the social political awareness. And in this particular category, it was more like a moderate type of alignment. So just to kind of dig a little bit deeper into that. So like, what does that even mean, right? Socio-political awareness. And so the question became, does their model engage poverty only as a need, or do they recognize it as a result of some of the systems that have been transformed into a particular country or whatever that situation might be, whether or not they look at it just kind of on the ground in terms of the individuals and the children in a specific village or a specific town? Are you looking at just that, or are you really looking at it through a lens of what is happening up here systemically that may have produced these types of conditions, right? So for me, if I take it back and think about when I was in Rwanda, I was very aware of the fact that these people that I was meeting experienced something horrific in their lives. And so one of the things that I did before I went was to study the Rwanda and the genocide and all of that, because I wanted to come in and be able to meet them where they are, rather than trying to kind of elevate them up to where I am as a person who has never experienced genocide before. So that was something that I really focused on, is that I wanted to be able to meet them wherever they are. And so that type of thing was really important for me, because I came in with an understanding of the socio-political background and the backstory that was there in terms of us interacting with these individuals and things like that, and just being acutely aware of the fact that, not like feeling sorry, but just being aware that they went through something very, very traumatic, right? And I am stepping into a part of their trauma, and how I present myself is going to be an indicator of how they receive me. And I wanted them to receive me as a person who saw their pain, saw their situation, and could sit down in a conversation. Like, there were moments where we were sitting down weeping with them, right? And so me being able to step into that for me was very important, right? And so again, it kind of gave me, what was that history? Or when you think about, again, getting back to MANNA, do they explore the systems that may have produced the poverty? Like, what is the colonial history? What does the global inequality look like? What are the local economic conditions, access to education, structural barriers? And so that was part of that social political awareness. I didn't necessarily see a lot of that. I could be totally wrong. And when we have the guests come on, that's one of the questions that I really want to dig into, is this idea of the social political awareness and how that shows up in the work that MANNA does. Um, and so the language that they use within this context leans a little bit more towards the service and the mission orientation, rather than the justice and the systemic and the analysis kind of orientation. So I know when we get together with the gentleman, that's one of the things that I really want to dig into and explore, is that part of their mission as well, is to understand the historical, the social, the political dynamics that produce the situation that these the people in the community or the village or whatever may find them in. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Gail, and she's going to talk a little bit more about some of the other elements that we looked at in terms of alignment with Reimagine We.
Right, with community engagement and strong alignment. It's like I've said before that MANNA does emphasize local partners and churches and community leaders and place-based projects across many countries. And so they do say that, and their trip page says programs are rooted in local communities and shaped around specific local needs, giving the participants a unique opportunity to partner with people who live in and love these communities. So they make those statements, even though the word rescue is in their mission statement. That it seems as if you dig a little deeper, and I think we'll find out more when we do talk with him, that it has moved beyond the traditional missionary model, that for 30-some years now, they've worked with these local leaders and communities to create the programs that do meet physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of children. And the phrase with local leaders is significant because it suggests something kind of beyond pure top-down rescue. And that each initiative is carefully designed in partnership with local leaders who understand their own community-specific needs. Also indicates that they're going a little bit deeper, and they're not just giving. They're really trying to help facilitate. And are they designing with communities? Are they designing with the communities, or are they designing for the communities? Is another question. And it seems like they do both, depending on which program you're actually going to look at. The language that they use, the people who live and love these communities, it really resonates certainly with what we imagine and the values that we've talked about. It also acknowledges that the community itself holds wisdom, holds love, and holds investment that no outside organization can really replicate or replace. So the key to Reimagine We question has to be, who holds that, as I said before, who holds that power in the room when the decisions are really made? Are the local leaders truly co-creators, or are they consulted after the framework has already been put in place? And I think that we'll find those answers out. So the cooperative economics piece, I think that their work includes a lot of job skills training, and according to their LinkedIn profile, microfinance ventures also. So MANNA's trip programs include hands-on projects and job skills training across multiple countries. Their presence in LinkedIn refers to microfinance ventures as part of their community development work. The research on MANNA's microfinance approach reveals something genuinely aligned with cooperative economics. One of the overall goals is to strengthen local institutions. And that is described as really the heart of what their microfinance program really strives to do through partnership with a local cooperative. Even more powerfully, their small business courses produce a moment where students actually can share their feelings as entrepreneurs and discuss in concrete detail how the course motivates them to make improvements to their own businesses. So described as a convicting reaffirmation capacity to truly empower others, this does qualify more as what we've been talking about. There are also beautiful real world examples they have of this working. Through MANNA Microfinance in South Sudan, women have developed skills-based businesses relying more on local resources rather than imported goods, with one woman using a $50 loan to begin a tailoring business that kept her family healthy and living. $50 loan, local skills, local resources. A woman who now owns her own livelihood. That's empowerment. And what would change if microfinance moved from charity loans to genuine cooperative ownership, where communities actually build wealth together rather than receiving it from the outside? So I think I've said that before, the most profound act of service is not to give someone what they need, it's to remind them they already have that within them. And we are just here to help them remember that. Yeah.
I like the whole thing with the microfinance. Years ago, when I first started really getting into understanding what social entrepreneurship is, right? And I had read a book, and it was really just breaking it down, and they gave multiple examples of women, particularly in some African nations, where they were able to get these microloans. And like you said, they built their businesses based on these micro loans. And so because like if you look at that scenario versus what we're used to in capitalism is about getting extracting as much out money as you can, whereas the microfinance and looking at it from more of a cooperative perspective is about what are we going to invest, what are we going to put in that will catapult these people into a different place of being able to build their own business and take care of their families and all that sort of thing. And so, I've talked about Rwanda, and that was one of the things that was very much on Deborah's mind, was that I want them, these people who had these experiences, to move beyond that and to be able to see themselves more holistically and to see themselves within the context of their humanity and all of that. And so for me, it was like really, really cool to be a part of that conversation and everything. And so as we kind of start winding down this conversation, one of the things that when we bring the gentleman on, I keep referring to him as the gentleman. His name is Craig Alltap. No, Craig. I think I'm blanking out on the actual pronunciation of his last name, but his name is Craig. And I had a really, really dynamic conversation with him when I asked him about that whole empowerment thing. He literally gave me a very good example of him being a catalyst as opposed to the source and all of that. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. And one of the things that, just to sum up where we are now, is asking this question: has the organization evolved beyond the founder's original rescue paradigm into that more empowerment-centered model, right? And I think about that question also within the context of the fact that they do, Alsep. I see the name down there is Alsep, Craig Alsep. And thinking about that within the context also of these trips that they do, right? And so the question becomes, when you do these trips, and this will be a good conversation with Craig because he's actually one of the people who organizes the mission trips in Asia, and just kind of talking about how does that happen? And when you're inviting people from outside of that community to participate, to come into this community, what is that conversation looking like in terms of setting their expectations, and getting a sense of where they're coming from. Are they coming in with just this kind of rescue mindset, or this mindset, oh, I'm just coming here because I'm going to help you build a school and then I'm moving on? Or, is that empowerment piece embedded in the missionaries as well, right? And so some of the stuff that I read is that they talk about diligently working to reach the unreached in Asia, and the saving grace and the love of Christ, and all of that, seeking to create partnerships with churches, businesses, and individuals that will support MANNA churches, orphanages, and things of that nature. So we're going to be able to dig a little bit deeper into what does the mission part of it actually look like, and is there a benefit, a deeper, empowering benefit for the people who actually come to do the work, that they're not just coming to help some kids that don't have food, that it's deeper than that for them, for the people that are making the decision to come on the trip, and all of that. So I know that's one of the questions that I really would want to dig into with him. When I used to be involved in this travel business, and we used to do these things called voluntourism trips. And so whenever we would go into a city, whether it was for a vacation or a conference or something, they always had something there that we could do. So for example, one of the times when we were in Mexico, Olivia was with me, and well, Hillary and Olivia were with me, but Hillary decided to do something else, and Olivia and I actually left the resort and went out into, I mean, not by ourselves, it was very organized, left the resort and went out into a like a community that had a school and all of these things. And when we got there, it was a church also, and the children like sang songs for us, and we painted a classroom, and all of that felt good for me. It was empowering for me to be able to step into their spaces and see their joy that they had, because we came to help them and to paint and to do this. But we were doing it because we were meeting the needs that they had expressed. So we weren't just coming in and saying, oh, we think you need this or that. Whenever we did the voluntourism, it was always about meeting a need that the community had expressed. So it was really, really cool.
And they were teachers to you also then, sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. We did work at different YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs. Like whenever I would go to a city, we would have some sort of voluntourism trip. So this kind of stuff, it's like, it's been in my blood for such a long time. And that's why when I think about the idea of being a catalyst for empowerment, that's kind of how I see myself. And that's how, I've wanted to be that type of person.
And you are.
Yeah. So I think we're pretty much coming down to the end of the wire for this particular episode. So I just want to kind of close things out a bit. The MANNA Worldwide defines its mission as rescuing children from the grip of poverty and providing hope for a better future. But that raises, when you think about the conversation that we just had, that raises a different conversation or a different question, a deeper question for all of us. What does it truly mean to rescue? And where does real empowerment come from? And so as we think about the conversation that we've already had on this topic, and as we prepare for the next conversation with Craig, it'll be really, really cool to kind of dig into some of this this work around empowerment, personal empowerment, community empowerment, and all of these types of things, that just kind of get a sense of him having worked with MANNA Worldwide for so many years, what has he gotten out of it, right? In terms of being able to be impactful for other people. So again, what does it truly mean to rescue, and where does real empowerment come from? So this brings us pretty much to the end of our episode. And what I'd like to say to the audience is, when you go on our promo page, we have a number of items that are listed there in our giveaway list for this particular episode. And you can also, so I have information there that kind of gives a little bit more background into the MANNA organization. That type of information is there. We also have an audience reflection ethos. And basically what that is a document that I put together where I formulate some questions, like 3 to 5 questions about this episode. So when you're here and you're listening to this episode, you have the opportunity to go in and download this document that kind of takes a look at, where do you fall when it comes to things like empowerment and all of that. So it's kind of, just something that I wanted to tease our audience with a little bit, so they can have a better sense of being involved in the conversation and that. And then I also have a complimentary Reimagine We exploration available. And the link for that is also in that list. And what this is a personal journey of courage and connection in community. And it's actually a lead-in to a year-long certificate program that I am creating along with Ujima Collective. And we're so excited about doing this work. It's a 12-month experiential lab, empowerment lab, and all of that. So I'm really looking forward to getting that work off the ground. So in preparation for that, we're offering a series of free complimentary workshops that people can come in and get a sense of what the program will be about. And then as we move forward, we'll start putting more information about the bigger program, the 1-year journey. And I feel like this is probably one of the best things that I've done in my life. So I feel so good about the work that we're going to be doing, and the fact that I'm partnering with Ujima Collective and all of that. And I'm learning so much from them that will help me to pour into the individuals that will be participating. And so that's a lot. So I'm trying to get to that point where I want to engage our audience a little bit more outside of just being on the podcast or watching the podcast. And then I'd also like to mention, in that list also is a link to our private Facebook page, where individuals can come in, again, continue the conversation about the engagement, about empowerment, and the whole Reimagine We platform. So you are here. I invite you to join Inflection Point Podcast every first and third Wednesday of the month. We are here at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time on the Transformation Network. So until next time, keep listening for those inflection points that help us to reimagine who we are, how we live, and what becomes possible when we're working together. So we're signing off at this point, and we will see you next time on Inflection Point Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to Inflection Point Podcast on the Transformation Network. To discover more about the Reimagine We platform, subscribe on Substack at anitadrussell.substack.com.